David Lovering, Kim Deal, Joey Santiago, and Black Francis. The Pixies are my co-hosts in the next 120 minutes on MTV.
The Pixies.
This ain't no holiday.
Where would rock music be without them? This Boston-based band has had their share of stories throughout their careers, mostly the internal clashes Francis had with Kim Deal. That doesn't stop them from being a major influence in rock.
Found it just about the most compelling music outside of Sonic Youth in the entire 80s, I think.
If you love the 90s and alternative rock from that era, chances are the bands you loved from that time were heavily inspired by this outfit. From Weezer to Radiohead, Modest Mouse to Toadies, and most famously Kurt Cobain wanting to copy their sound for Nirvana. I cannot state enough how much of an impact this band has with their respective genre. So when it comes time to talking about them, I like to put the spotlight on what became the powder keg that put them into the limelight of music.
This year's release is called Doolittle. It's their second full-length LP.
Now, the Pixies aren't really known as a band to be popular in terms of commercial success.
At Boston, USA, the Pixies!
They have a huge following in the United Kingdom when the album Surfer Rosa was released in 1987, but they didn't have the same amount of success in their home country. That would change when they released Doolittle 2 years later and had a song and music video that changed everything for them. Here Comes Your Man is an interesting beast to tackle here, because on the surface, this looks like a very plain video to discuss. Just the band performing in a room with a blue backdrop and flowers all about. You could easily write this off if it wasn't for some noticeable creative decisions. Yeah, there is no lip syncing in this video whatsoever. Not to mention this real groovy special effect they do with the band's heads. Why did they do that? What was the thought process behind this video and why did it win over people on MTV? We got a real ball game here to talk about this time around, so stay tuned for this history lesson as I explain how this video even came to fruition. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. It is once again music video time, and we are talking about the Pixies and their music video to Here Comes Your Man.
My co-hosts are the Pixies. They're also going to be playing live here on 120 Minutes.
The fifth track off of their second album, Doolittle, Here Comes Your Man was released as the album's second single on June 19th, 1989. Now, Doolittle as an album was highly anticipated for the band. Surfer Rosa, while not being a massive hit in the US when released in 1987, was still a critical darling by critics, ending up becoming Album of the Year on publications like Melody Maker and Sounds. Spin Magazine would make the Pixies their Musicians of the Year. Surfer Rosa was an important album for alternative rock, even to the point that Kurt Cobain got the album's producer Steve Albini to do In Utero because of how much he loved this album. So when Doolittle was about to drop, the anticipation resulted in a bidding war to see who would sign the band in the United States, as they were just signed onto British label 4AD. Elektra Records would win out at the end. Once Doolittle came out in 1989, not only was it critically acclaimed as their debut, it is seen as the best album by the Pixies, to the point that it is considered one of the greatest albums ever from publications like the NME and Rolling Stone. In addition, the album did better commercially than their first. Not only was the band riding off the success of Surfer Rosa, but also the new one's glowing reviews. But there's another factor as to how this album did so well. That would be its singles, Monkey Gone to Heaven and Here Comes Your Man. While the Pixies were secured on all fronts when it came to Doolittle, they did something that they hadn't done yet in their career: make a music video.
And this I know, his teeth as white as snow.
Surfer Rosa only had one single off their album, Gigantic.
Big, big, oh, gigantic, gigantic.
A rare track in itself, as it was co-written by Kim Deal.
Where's that song about, Gigantic?
It's about
She wrote it. You wrote it.
Lyrics.
Because most of oh yeah.
Right.
It was a hit on college radios, but they didn't make a music video for it. It wouldn't be until Doolittle when they started doing promotionals for their singles, first being Monkey Gone to Heaven. A pretty good song to choose for their first music video, though the video did end up not being played on MTV's main rotation. Reading Billboard's MTV charts for 1989, I did not see the video listed, but instead, it was played a few times on the channel's alternative block 120 Minutes from April to May 1989. Good that they had some airplay, but if they wanted a wider audience, they needed to make a music video for a song that was more, say, accessible. Being an alternative band, the Pixies tended not to be the most mainstream friendly when it came to their songs. Heck, Monkey Gone to Heaven is a song about environmentalism and references biblical themes throughout. Like, you can see why this didn't end up on the main rotation song-wise. But the band did have a song that was, as John Dolan from Spin Magazine called it, the most accessible song by an underground-type band. Here Comes Your Man is a song with an interesting history behind its creation. The song was made all the way back when Black Francis was a teenager. And for a while, it seemed like no one wanted to actually make this a real song. While they were making the Purple Tape, which was a 17-track demo tape made that got them the record deal at 4AD, producer Paul Coldieri noted the group did not want to record Here Comes Your Man, as the group referred to it as the Tom Petty song.
Here comes your man. Here comes your man.
Producer Gary Smith stated that there was some reluctance to do Here Comes Your Man because it was too pop. There was something too straight about it.
A boxcar waiting, take me way to nowhere place.
The label head of 4AD, Ivor Watts Russell, who picked the track listing for the band's debut mini-album Come On Pilgrim, left out Here Comes Your Man. Not because he disliked the track, quite the opposite. Watts Russell liked the song, but as he put it, it felt like too obviously commercial and I didn't want what they were doing with the band. Watts Russell also thought it was too much like the 1977 song Spanish Stroll by Mink DeVille.
Mr. Sue, tell me baby, what are we gonna do?
I do want to mention that this is coming from the Doolittle Consortium by Ben Cesario as part of the 13 1/3 book series. I highly recommend it if you're a Pixies fan. And the song would continue being in the state of limbo for release. One recording of Here Comes Your Man would have been released as its own single after the release of Surfer Rosa, but it got shot down by Gigantic being selected instead. Eventually the song would make its proper debut on an album with Doolittle, but by then, Black Francis was embarrassed by the song. But because Doolittle's producer Gil Norton really liked the song, as Francis put it in a Spin article, he threw him a bone and the song would finally get a proper recording. And eventually, it would become a single for Doolittle, and with them making a music video to Monkey Gone to Heaven, their follow-up will also get the same music video treatment. So here's the thing. I was originally just going to talk about the music video and the later impact it had for the Pixies, as admittedly, there doesn't appear to be that much information about the music video's production. If you looked at the Wikipedia page, there's only 3 sentences to the video. And even then, it doesn't really talk about how they made the video. But I knew there had to be more to this. I just needed to find the right people to ask. So, I elected to email 2 people that I think would get me the answers I wanted. Neil Pollack and Jonathan Beckmeyer, the directors of Here Comes Your Man. And if I wanted to know more about this music video, I would have to talk to these 2. Mr. Pollack, can you explain who you are and what you do?
I'm Neil Pollack. I was a music video and commercial director for about 20 years. I moved to Chicago and became creative director of Leo Burnett, which lasted 15 years, and now I'm freelance.
Getting interviews for both Pollack and Beckmeyer managed to fill in a lot of gaps for information about the music video. While it may be trivial for some, I think being able to know what it took to make this music video adds to the admiration of the final product. So let's first talk about them. Who are Neil Pollack and Jonathan Beckmeyer? Well, apparently, they were film students at Emerson College in the 1980s. Beckmeyer was a year ahead of Pollack in college, so he graduated in 1988, with Pollack a year later. Their alma mater is important to note because, interestingly, they knew and friended both Black Francis and Errol Thompson, Black Francis's brother. For anyone unaware, Black Francis's real name is Charles Michael Kittredge Thompson IV. Oh my god. Thanks to this connection, the 2 aspiring filmmakers were able to make a music video for the Pixies, which happens to be Monkey Gone to Heaven. Basically, Pollock happened to be the director while Beckmeyer shot it. So with this project, they were a shoo-in to direct the Pixies sophomore video.
How do you like making videos?
Good, because we actually make them, and we hire our friends to put them together, and we make them ourselves, so it is a lot of fun.
And the concept for Here Comes Your Man started while they were making Monkey Gone to Heaven. And what Francis wanted in his next music video would not have anything to do with lip syncing. Now, every average Joe would know that a music video tends to have lip syncing if the artist is on screen. A song is playing in your piece, for God's sakes, you need the artist to actually look like as if they're actually performing it. Otherwise, it looks weird. It'd be like if a film had dialogue with no lip movement. But there was a method to this madness, as Francis didn't want to fake it. Apparently, the inspiration for this decision was explained in an interview with 120 Minutes.
What's the idea behind kind of mouthing just instead of singing the lyrics during the video?
I suppose it was inspired by the whole lip syncing that goes on with videos, but it could have been inspired by an older video by a group called Talk Talk, who had a song called It's My Life, and they had a really good squiggle on his lips instead of singing in it. I think it might have been inspired from that.
Now, it's interesting that Talk Talk's video inspired Here Comes Your Man, as I have noticed the similarities the two videos had with the lack of lip syncing. Though with It's My Life's case, the music video is the way that it is because director Tim Pope was tired of the banality of lip syncing in music videos, which resulted in singer Mark Hollis not performing the song. Instead, the video has Hollis keeping his hands in his pockets, his mouth is taped shut, and even then, they cover the mouth up with animation. All the while, a BBC documentary on animals is interspersed. Very interesting decision, but who would have thought that it would inspire at least one music video later on? Now, you just can't have the musicians look stoically at the camera and perform their song instrumentally. You would need to at least identify who is singing. I mean, obviously you can guess Kim Deal was the co-vocalist, but we have three guys in the band. According to Beckmeyer, he's not totally sure if it was he and Pollock or Francis who came up with the compromise, but it was made that they just opened their mouths when the lyrics came in. And whoever came up with that was a good decision. For the budget, according to Pollock, Here Comes Your Man's cost was under $20,000. Seems a bit obvious looking at the music video that it was done relatively cheap, video-wise, but with that amount given to them, they needed to make sure everything was done right. The directors and Francis came up with the music video in their apartment and making sure how it was going to be shot, with all the blocking and all the framing. Pollock explained to me that this music video was meant to be more of a performance piece, and it was going to be a pretty colorful video. That's why there's a blue background and the band members are wearing clothing with bright colors. These were intentional decisions to be as colorful as possible in under 20 grand. This also explains why there's flowers throughout. Interestingly, Beckmeyer said that they bought flowers at a wholesaler the day of. Apparently you just can't buy flowers wholesale, but they managed to buy a shit ton of them for the video. Though something they didn't take into account was flowers weren't watered, they ended up drooping, which you might notice while watching. The video was shot in a small studio thanks to knowing someone who owned it going to Emerson College as well. And from what Beckmeyer told me, this small studio is now a crack den.
Say what?
Yeah, he told me this studio was in Mass and Cass in Boston, which has some very interesting nicknames to it if you're not aware, like Methadone Mile or Recovery Road. Seems like a lot has changed since shooting this video. And speaking of shooting the video, they only had a day to film it, which seems pretty obvious as well, but there's a pretty important fact about this shoot. They needed to be really precise when shooting this, because the rough recollection from Beckmeyer said that they only had around 400 feet in film, and if you ever mess with physical film, 400 feet is peanuts compared to how they usually shoot movies. It is only a couple minutes of film to shoot. Here Comes Your Man's music video is 3 minutes and 19 seconds, so 400 feet is not a lot of room for margin of error. Now, this video is one of the first big projects the two directors had out of college. For God's sakes, Here Comes Your Man was Pollock's third music video he directed. Them having a small budget wasn't a coincidence, so they had to get enough coverage for the editing process while keeping in mind their limited resources. Which leads to the editing process. Their editor was Peter Martinez. Couldn't find anything about the guy due to his name being pretty common, but it was his editing that added another memorable aspect to the music video. While the video plays, there are shots where the band members' heads are heavily exaggerated thanks to special effects. As Martinez was doing a linear edit of the video, he just did the effect in the video because, which offers a funny detail Pollock had about that moment when they all saw the effect.
He just blew up their heads, and I was like, whoa. And we used it. Charles was in the edit suite rolling joints, and we were all pretty high, and it went off.
Everyone in the room loved it, and as Beckmeyer described it, they look like Pixies now. Though it does remind me of another thing Francis said in an issue of Alternative Press, that the theme of the music video was water on the brain. What does that mean? At best, that's another term for hydrocephalus, which is a condition where there's buildup of fluid in the cavities deep in your brain, but I'm not sure what he meant by that, and asking Pollock and Beckmeyer, they have no clue what the hell he's saying either. Seems like Francis has a tendency to just say things.
I don't know, I think that we have no direction except that we like records.
Yeah.
And we just assume make them as well as buy them and listen to them.
So, for the music video itself, in terms of quality, I really enjoy this video. When you watch it, you can see that it's just panning left and right and tilting up and down. On first glance, you would argue it's amateurish. No shit, it's the director's early works. But I think this works in the video's favor. It is very simple, but with the basic camera directions and just having the band perform the music video in a small space surrounded by flowers, I like to think that it gives you the opportunity to not get too distracted and listen to the song itself. Remember, music videos is about selling the song, and I'm sold on the song. That being said, the special effects used in it are very much eye-catching. This music video ends up becoming incredibly fun to watch. I love this music video, which might be mostly due to the fact how awesome Here Comes Your Man is as a song. Yeah, it's not like any of their other works, but it's incredibly catchy. I mean, the song is just... What is the song about again? Francis explained the song's meaning in an interview with the NME in 1989 that I'm just gonna read verbatim. It's about winos and hobos traveling on the trains who die in the California earthquake peeing their pants. Before earthquakes, everything gets very calm. Animals stop talking and birds stop chirping and there's no wind. It's very ominous. I've been through a few earthquakes actually because I grew up in California. I was only in one big one in 1971. I was very young and I slept through it. I've been awake through all the small ones at school and at home. It's very exciting actually. It's like the earth is shaking and what do? Nothing. Okay, so he made a song about an earthquake killing people. He was embarrassed by this? I'm gonna be honest, this song is awesome. Now to put some perspective, the original song that was part of the Purple tape is different from the final product. Definitely sounded like a Petty song, but a big difference is that the final version's second verse didn't exist. In the original, the second verse was just the same as the first. Not even sure if the second recording made is available to listen to make a comparison. All I know is just everything was reworked to make it the way it is now, and the final product is just a really solid song. Both Black Francis and Kim Deal not lip-syncing in the music video, it's very unique, but showed defiance when it came to how music videos were made. Both that and the big heads resulted in a rather surreal experience that is all around memorable. Heck, the song itself is surreal as well when you think about it. Not only that, but seeing all four members staring intently at the camera when they perform, it's a bit menacing. Seeing Joe Santiago just staring at you while he's playing his instrument, while he just locks eyes with me. What did I do to you, Joey? Not much else to say video-wise. I think it's just fun to watch, and I think that because of the quality of the video, it got them onto MTV's main rotation. When it came to its showing on the channel, it made its first appearance on 120 Minutes on the June 11th, 1989 episode. This is important to keep in mind, as while this would play a few times on the block later that year, the next time it would appear on the channel would be when it made its debut on the main rotation for the week of July 8th, 1989. By the next week, it was part of the breakout videos on the channel, meaning that it was just an absolute surprise hit, which leads to this interesting tidbit. For the next few weeks on the channel, it was listed under the buzz bin section.
The buzz goes like this.
This is where it gets really interesting. The buzz bin section of MTV means that they would select new music videos that they considered buzzworthy or cutting edge or the next big thing, and they would be played on heavy rotation on the channel, just like the regular heavy rotation slot. But the difference between just playing it a lot on the channel that way and being a buzz bin video is that there would be promotional commercials made to highlight these music videos.
A kaleidoscope of new sounds in sharp focus on MTV.
Basically, MTV is advertising their audience on what bands and sounds to look forward to. And this worked! In 1992, the New York Times published an article about buzz bins. Using Temple of the Dog as an example, the only album in the first 14 months of release sold 105,000 copies. Not bad, but not super great. But when Hunger Strike was selected as a buzz bin video, Temple of the Dog sold an additional 315,000 copies and would crack the top 10 in both Billboard's mainstream rock and alternative airplay charts. That record success is 100% attributable, said the senior vice president of marketing at A&M Records. In the case of Here Comes Your Man, this music video helped break the band into mainstream in the United States. From the week of July 8th to the week of August 26, 1989, the music video played on MTV's rotation. This time on the channel can be seen as contributing to the single becoming a hit on the charts. For comparison's sake, Monkey Gone to Heaven peaked at number 5 on the alt charts before the release of their second single, but Here Comes Your Man would be the bigger hit, peaking at number 3 on the charts by July 15th, 1989, and stayed on the charts for 14 weeks. Not only was this a big hit for the band in the US, but in the UK, which the band had already a following by this time, it would hit the UK singles charts for the week of July 1st, peaking at number 54, before dropping down to 78 the following week and then disappearing on the charts. Still though, the single would sell 400,000 copies in the UK and be certified gold by the BPI in 2025. Bringing it back to the US, Doolittle was a commercial success. It debuted on Billboard's 200 charts at number 171 for the week of May 6, 1989, but it would peak at number 98 on September 2nd, 1989, and stay on the top 200 for a grand total of 27 weeks. After the first 6 months, the album had sold 100,000 copies, and it would continue selling at least 1,000 copies a week, with it eventually hitting gold status in 1995. It would also hit platinum status in 2018, meaning the album has sold 1 million copies. Doolittle remains the Pixies' best-selling album, and part of the reason for that has to do with Here Comes Your Man and its video. Which is ironic to say, since despite being their breakout hit, they rarely played the song live. Maybe the band really were embarrassed to play this song. Though there is a very funny anecdote Joey Santiago had about them having a chance to perform on the Arsenio Hall show. We were in LA already doing a bunch of stuff. Arsenio Hall asked us if we wanted to play the show, and we weren't playing Here Comes Your Man at the time, you know. The tour manager said, "Hey, Arsenio Hall wants you to come to the show." We said, "Well, what do they want to hear?" He said, "Here Comes Your Man." No way. We told them we would love to go on only if we did the song Tame. And they said, no thank you. This is what Tame sounds like, by the way. On the plus side, their newfound success totally validated the band, especially for Santiago's parents. When they first saw me on MTV, they went, okay, you're not just playing shitty nightclubs, which is a great thing to hear from your family, by the way. Another thing is that them appearing on MTV got Black Francis out of a drug possession charge.
What?
I was driving my Cadillac with my girlfriend across Texas, quite near the Mexican border. At 3 in the morning, I was pulled over by the border police. There were 6 of them, and I had this giant yellow car with out-of-state tags. I hadn't been to Mexico, but I'd bought a couple of piñatas in Boston for my young cousins, but had totally forgotten to give them to them. And there they were on top of my trunk, with Mexico written incriminatingly across them. I also had a small marijuana stuck in a guitar in the trunk.
Oh shit! The whole truck's full of 'em, Marge!
I was thinking, oh shit, these people were questioning me, getting ready to take my car apart. Then finally the leader said, hey, haven't I seen you on MTV? I said, yes you have, officer. I'm in a band called the Pixies. Somehow, he'd seen our video and recognized me. Then suddenly, out come the Polaroid cameras for me to pose for them, with me literally holding a shotgun. They were shaking hands like I was a big star. Then they let me go my way. It was a close thing. You really don't want to get arrested in Texas for marijuana possession. Francis said that this happened in early spring of 1990, so it does seem like Here Comes Your Man's video was most definitely what the officers saw the singer from. Also, I wish the picture of him with the officers posing and holding shotguns was out there in the wild. As far as I can tell, they have never been seen publicly. The legacy of Here Comes Your Man would continue to linger on 120 Minutes, as it played sporadically into the next decade on MTV.
Trompe le Monde is the latest Pixies album.
One episode in particular has the Pixies being co-hosts of 120 Minutes with Dave Kendall as they promote their fourth album, and this would be the first video shown. And possibly to show how much of an impact the video had for the alternative block, it was one of Kendall's picks to show on the final airing of the block in 2003. As for Neil Pollack and Jonathan Beckmeyer, the success of Here Comes Your Man would open up their careers. They would be signed on to satellite films and make videos for bands from Gear Daddies, Think Trees, Cave Dogs, The Buck Pets. But they did end up directing one more music video for the Pixies with Alec Eiffel. Off their fourth album, Trompe le Monde, it was the second single off it, and it featured the band performing in a wind tunnel in LA. The video didn't seem to have the same impact for its album like Here Comes Your Man did, as it played for 5 weeks on MTV before being taken off the main rotation. But that doesn't matter. The two also have their hands in both commercials and music videos. Pollack even shot the opening sequence for 120 Minutes that was shown in the 90s. Also, I can't find another place to mention this, but in terms of music videos, Pollack also made a video for, of all people, Tony Bennett.
That say welcome to real life.
Outstanding. While the two have lost touch with Black Francis over the years, I was told separately that the two directors still keep in touch. Reflecting on the whole thing about Doolittle, Black Francis was very philosophical about how it all turned out. As was written in Louder, to put it in perspective, we were a quirky band. People say that we must have sold a lot of records, but we had that video on MTV for 6 weeks and sold an additional 60,000 records. The 90s hadn't really happened yet, where so-called alternative bands were selling millions of records. We were selling a few 100,000 maximum, but we were impressed at the time. Suddenly, we were out of our day jobs and flushed with cash. It was fantastic, but we were still some scrappy indie rock band. We weren't like all other bands that came after. I mean, they broke up in 1993, but it's safe to say that they were ahead of the curve for things to come. Here Comes Your Man is a good music video, no doubt about it. It's really fun to watch, and the song playing during it is incredible. What the Pixies did for rock is something to commend them for, though the apprehensiveness to even releasing this song in the wild is a bit ridiculous in retrospect, but this ended up bearing fruit for the band. From the book, Fool the World, The Oral History of a Band Called Pixies by Josh Frank and Karen Gantz, Ira Watts Russell stated that if Black Francis was persuaded to release the version of Here Comes Your Man that they recorded during their gigantic session, that the label had described as totally streamlined and ready for radio, that maybe if a major record label was able to convince people to take a more commercial route, maybe Pixies would have sold a whole bunch more records than they did. But those steps were not required back in 1989. Interesting thought, but does that really matter now? The Pixies' sound were a major influence for so many bands and artists, especially Kurt Cobain. More than likely, what the route they went with is the reason we got Smells Like Teen Spirit. Those songs off Doolittle led us to the end result we know now as the rock boom of the 90s. It may be crazy to say this, but the decisions that happened all those years ago helped get us one of the greatest music videos of all time. I'd like to thank both Neil Pollack and Jonathan Beckmeyer for taking part in these interviews for this history lesson, as it helped shed light on how they directed this classic. And also shout out to viewers keeping the channel going by subscribing and suggesting future music videos to cover. Keep recommending ideas for the future, and you might never know, they might be talked about sooner or later. But I can assure you that you'll never have to wait so long for the next video. Until then, thanks for your time.